our overwintering broad beans have actually done really, really well. I'm actually quite surprised just how well they've done, considering some of the really cold, frosty, and particularly wet weather that we've had over the autumn and winter period. But they're doing okay. And if you're a follower of our channel, you'll know that I always oversow just by a few, just in case we need to replace any. However, these won't actually now be really any good to put outside into the garden, because if we suddenly get a really cold snap during February, these won't have got their feet down into the ground and they could really suffer. So in the case of any failures out there, we shall just start some more seed off and then put those in when the weather is just that little bit better. But with our polytunnel that we have, there's no reason why we can't pop these into here and hopefully get an earlier crop.
Good old root system on there, Mr. Wilson.
That there is. We often talk about tillering, don't we, with broad beans.
Yeah.
And this is a great example of just how they can do that. If they're happy, there is only just the one seed in here, there's not two. And you can see it's sending up its shoots, and it's already got 2 stems. So that's already going to double the harvest that we can expect from this.
Great.
And I'm kind of thinking that by doing this, hopefully we actually get a slightly earlier harvest from these, because these will be grown under cover. They're already coming on quite a bit. So I thought I'd pop 3 in this side and 3 in that side. Now, I'm really super excited today because we actually begin our first grow along. And so many of you actually voted for this particular plant. So let's get right into it and start our grow along of the lovely, the wonderful Calabrese. Now, once again, as for all the seeds we're sowing this month, they're all going into this Melcourt compost. Calabrese produces large domed heads, around about 6 inches across. And the variety we're sowing is a variety called Marathon. We have grown that for the last 2 or 3 seasons, haven't we? And
Yeah,
find it to
I think
be
more than that, actually. Yeah.
we find it to be the best for us. We have grown other varieties, and they've been fine, but we find this produces the best heads for us. They won't produce the largest heads, but they certainly don't produce the smallest heads. But before we do anything, let's get the elephant out of the room. Broccoli and Calabrese are 2 completely different plants. Even though the supermarkets, certainly here in the UK, lead you to believe that a Calabrese is a broccoli, in gardening terms, they are actually both very different. Calabrese, as I said earlier, produces a large domed head, around about 6 inches across. Whereas sprouting broccoli, which is broccoli, they produce small spears over a number of weeks of purple or white florets. But, so that there's no confusion, we are going to be growing Calabrese, which the supermarkets often called broccoli. The other difference is that Calabrese and broccoli are sown at completely different times of the year. So the first sowings of your Calabrese can be made now in February, and you'll continue to sow that right up until June or early July. And you get your harvests from June through to autumn. Whereas broccoli, you don't sow until, well, in our case, we don't sow it until June, and it goes into the ground in July, and you don't start to harvest that until the new year. We grew a variety called Rudolph, and that started harvesting last week in December, wasn't it?
Yes, yeah.
So during Christmas week. But we also have another variety out there called Claret, which we will expect to harvest late April and through May. These are in the ground a matter of 2 or 3 months, but the broccoli are in the ground for 6 to 8 months. Longer if you actually sow yours much earlier. The seed packets often recommend that you sow them during April. The other thing is that I always find with Calabrese, you can harvest yours at exactly the optimum moment, the right time for you to be able to enjoy that vegetable. When you buy it from the supermarket, that have been around a while, if you look at the end of the stem, it's often calloused over. And the stem will be really, really hard. You'll know that I stole the virtues of the stem. As far down as you cut that stem, it's not just the florets that you're going to enjoy, it's also that stem has the same lovely taste. And when you can harvest it fresh like that, it's something to savour, isn't it, Mrs. W?
Definitely. It's really tender, isn't it?
It really is. It really is. The other thing you can do with Calabrese is that once you harvest its central head, it will start to send out side shoots for the next 6 to 8 weeks. And again, you've seen us do that before on this channel, but if you are new to the channel, welcome. And if you subscribe to our channel, you'll find out how we get on with this, but also go do and search out our playlists and you'll see where the little shoots have come and we've then harvested those. For myself and Mrs. W, we don't do that to the summer ones that we harvest, we just take the central head. But that's because we want to get another crop into the ground. So these that I'm going to sow today, we will be having that harvest in June, mid to late June. And immediately we've had those heads, we'll twist the plants out of the ground and the next plantings will go in. The other thing I've started to do is to sow these successionally. So I'm going to sow some now, and I shall sow it again in March, again in April, again in May, again in June. And there will only be 2 or 3 plants in the row. It needs to be enjoyed at its best. Yes, you can keep it in the fridge for 2 or 3 days. Yes, you can freeze it. But it's not so good when you keep it in the fridge and then use it. And we've always found that actually when you do freeze it, it can often come out all mushy, can't it?
The florets tend to fall off a bit, don't they?
Yeah, not quite as good.
I don't really like freezing broccoli, Calabrese.
So you're far better off. So you're far better off actually to successionally sowing it each month, just 2 or 3 plants, or however many you need. You could have a much bigger plot than us. We don't have the space to do it here. But you can then enjoy that head as and when you want to cut it. And what I'm going to do...
Oh, there are those blue seeds. I'd forgotten about that.
What I'm going to do is aim for 2 seeds per cell.
You don't always get these seeds blue, do you? Just
No.
something that they...
But it is really quite handy.
Yes, you can see them a lot better, can't you?
Not so good for me on film because everybody can see. Oh, he's got that one wrong. He's got 4 seeds in there. I'm sure you wouldn't say that. I'm sure that wouldn't appear in the comments.
I'd think it.
Tamp that down. And then once they do actually germinate, we shall then thin to the strongest seedling. Just get some water in a tray. Don't need a huge amount. Let's pop the label in so we don't forget what they are. And into the water they go. And we shall leave that for about 20-30 minutes until the compost has soaked up all the water it requires. We'll see the vermiculite actually change colour, so we'll know when it's ready. They don't need to go on any particular kind of heat source. Because it is February, we shall take them down to the house where the ambient heat within the house will aid their germination. Once they've germinated, we'll bring them back up here to the polytunnel. You can sow this any time during the month of February, so don't worry if you missed the beginning of the year when we announced what the grow along was going to be, and you would still like to take part in the grow along with us. You've got plenty of time to nip out and get your seeds. Nip down to your garden centre, pick up a packet of seeds, get them sown. Your plants won't be very far behind us whatsoever. And we shall come back in a few weeks' time when they shall be ready to go out into the garden. So whenever you see that thumbnail grow with us, then you know we're about to show you something that regards the grow along. And of course, if you do want to be a part of it and you're not yet subscribed to our channel, then please do so. We'd be glad to have you here on our journey through this gardening season in 2024. Have a great gardening week, won't you all? And we, as always, shall see you on the next one.